Now back to the Morning Rush with Bill Carroll on News Talk 580 CFRA.
As we've been talking about the opioid crisis across the city, every now and again I'll have somebody call in or I'll get an email, and people talk as if this happens in only certain neighborhoods. It only happens in the suburbs, in the affluent suburbs, or it only happens to people that are down and out downtown, or people from broken families. I had a call about that last night or the night before. So the reality is this opioid crisis that is spreading across the country, it has been with us for some time. In fact, someone sent me a news story from 2013 last night, one of the local papers talking about the little outbreak of fentanyl abuse in Manotick back in 2013, saying help is on the way. We're getting help on the way. So it's been with us for a while, but it is growing, it is spreading, and it truly can happen to anyone. Darryl Gebien was an emergency room doctor in Barrie, Ontario, who ended up having his door busted down by Barrie police. He was put in cuffs, taken away, all because of trying to deal with his own fentanyl addiction. And Dr. Gebien joins us on the line now. Thanks for the time, Darryl.
You're very welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Your story told in Maclean's is eye-opening. What do you fill us in on how you ended up in Barrie, your job as an emergency room doctor, and how you ended up addicted to opioids? Take us to the beginning.
Okay, so it goes back to 2008. Suffered a couple of injuries. Well, actually, one was an injury, and the other was just waking up with excruciating back pain. Both of which I received prescriptions for Percocet, and kind of Pandora's box sort of opened for me even right there at the beginning, because I knew immediately that I kind of liked it. I think there definitely there's a sign that there was an addictive personality alive and well in me, and but in the beginning I took the prescriptions responsibly, kept the medications in my medicine chest, and just used it periodically. And when I needed it, when the back pain would come, I would take more. I'd take more of the Percocet. When it'd go away, I'd take less. Mm-hmm. But the back pain just got substantially worse. And now, if we look at the longer term, so from 2008 to 2012, 2013, the back pain is getting worse over this time. It's becoming more frequent. I'm getting more. I'm depending more on the Percocet because of the pain. I need to function to be able to deal with the pain. I found that I was becoming more and more reliant, and really was becoming dependent on the Percocet. So still using it properly, but over that longer period of time now, like for over 4 years, there was like a spiral where I started relying more and more heavily on the Percocet. And then this doesn't happen in a vacuum like the addiction. It turns into an addiction when I start using it more frequently than it was prescribed, and that's, some people do fine with a prescription and they're responsible with it. But combining my personality and my nature, I guess, with addictive tendencies, to having the back pain, and then, as I said, not in a vacuum. So I started medicating my own emotional pain, really, with the Percocet. I mean, I found I hate to say it, but I found it to be a happy pill. It helped my pain, it helped my mood, and I had increased wakefulness from it, but not realizing that it's a double-edged sword. So when I say happy pill, there is also, for every up, there's a down.
You crash at some point.
Yeah, and for me...
And then you need more.
That's right, and there was a day when, in 2013, in the winter, when I noticed I was really moody in the morning, really irritable. I didn't know what was going on. I'm not sure if this was in the magazine or not, but I was with my contractor. We were at Lowe's or Rona, and I just remember being really irritable. And then it went away that later that day when I took a Percocet, and I realized, now I'm in deeper than I thought. So it's the opiates in general can be very sneaky drugs, like meaning that
you're still practicing medicine at this point, and then November 2014, you had an intervention from your employer at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Barrie. You've
Right.
just hit your birthday. You've just turned 44. You show up to work, and your medical career was over.
Yeah, I mean, so much had happened, though. We need to rewind just a little bit here because going from the Percocet, I realized, I had developed some dependency on it. And so if I didn't take it, I started feeling sick. And so that's when the things become really nasty for somebody who's developed a drug misuser, is that you become dependent, like a slave on the drug. And so the Percocet use escalates. There comes a day when I graduate to fentanyl, and this is what leads up to the arrest.
Okay.
So in May 2014, I think I was out of Percocet and feeling horrible. And this is where it's important for people to understand that how desperate somebody becomes when they are now addicted to these drugs, and they want not just the withdrawal. They fear the withdrawal, but they fear also it's the withdrawal you fear, but also the fear of withdrawal. And it's very motivating and compelling for the drug user to obtain their medications, drugs, whatever, in any way possible. And it's no excuse. I mean, I'm not saying I'm at fault for the decisions I made, but I look back and go, how the heck did I do these things? And this is where I've noticed that people are desperate in these situations. Now, this is when it gets really ugly, and people turn to crime. They steal from their family, their friends, prostitution, and they become desperate. And so for me, I mean, I abused my authority as a physician. I prescribed inappropriately, and that's why I later had the troubles.
So you didn't have to, you had a good paying job, you had money,
Right.
But as you say, you abused your authority. You were writing your own prescriptions and forging signatures.
Yeah. Yep. It's the shocking truth of it. I mean, now I've got a clean mind. It's 2 years later. And I ask myself too, like, what happened? How did I go from A to B? It's like it's really, I try to look at it objectively. It's an ugly truth, but that's what I'm here for, is to share how ugly this truth is. And
well, let's talk about the ugly truth of relapsing after you go to rehab, because we're talking about an awful lot in this city about the need for more treatment, more rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. And as I speak to people that have been through this, they say relapsing 1, 2, sometimes 3 times before it finally takes is not uncommon. So you walk in just after your birthday, 2014, you go into the hospital and you're told you're done.
Right.
You've been caught out, and after that, you go to rehab, correct?
Right, yeah. So I graduated to fentanyl. It became that just sped up this spiral because it's so much more potent and more strong, and it puts you into withdrawal even faster, and it makes you do even crazier things to obtain it. So yeah, I started prescribing inappropriately, not in my name, but I don't want to get too much into the legalities of it, but I ran out of friends that I could use, and I even prescribed in my wife's name, and she wasn't even aware of it at the time, and I picked up the medications. I did stupid things, like very regrettable things, but this is what an addict does. And so it ultimately led to forgeries, even of my own colleagues, and it's horrible. It's very shameful when I look back at it, and I don't mean to laugh, but
I understand. It's an uncomfortable laugh because
yes.
You're dealing with an uncomfortable truth. I'm speaking with Dr. Darryl Gebien. His story is laid out in Maclean's, and he's on the line with us now to share, on an issue that we've been talking about quite a bit. Darryl, are you able to stick with us after a quick break here?
Yeah, absolutely, because I want to get to the relapse and why.
We're going to take a quick break and come back with you on the relapse and treatment and how detox and recovery works. I'm Brian Lillian for Bill Carroll. This is The Morning Rush. Dr. Darryl Gebien is with us. His story is laid out in Maclean's, how fentanyl turned an ER doctor into an addict. We've talked about how you became addicted, Darryl. We were up to the point where you were dismissed from your job as an ER doctor in Barrie, Ontario. From there, you tried rehab, didn't you?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what was that process like?
It was a nightmarish period for me, but so it was November 3rd, 2014, was when I was basically arrested, or pulled aside at work and arrested at home on a notice to appear, so the polite way by the police. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days later, and $10,000 later, I went to a rehab facility in Guelph, Ontario, and I needed it. I mean, I needed to get out of the situation. I had tried to quit several times before, but not successfully. So this time, the gig was up. This burden of hiding and lying and deceiving people was over, and so it actually was the beginning of getting back on of recovery. It took a while, and yes, relapses do occur for some people. So I went to I detoxed there at this place, and I don't remember 2 of the 5 weeks. Basically, I was very, very sick, going through withdrawals and the weakness that happens afterwards. But I did learn a lot when I was there, and there's a part that stuck in my mind, and that's grieving the loss of your drug of choice. And sounds weird, but this is true.
You grieve the loss of your drug?
Yeah, I'm not the only one. This is what happens with people, with alcoholics, drug users. Yeah, it becomes a crutch so much for people, a friend, so to speak. And when you're going through early recovery, people do miss their drug of choice, whether it's alcohol or drugs. Sounds crazy, but it's true. And so I relapsed soon afterwards because I wanted to have one more go. It's still just sick mind of a recovering addict, and one last go with the fentanyl patches, and I almost killed myself, which I'd been warned well about, but just not thinking clearly at all, and I was very conniving. I tried to hide it, almost killed myself, came very close to death, and I still wasn't done. Even after that episode, I still continued to use until I felt that I was done.
So you've already lost your job. You've already been arrested. You've already been through rehab, and you're back to abusing, cooking, inhaling fentanyl patches, and your wife finds you almost dead in your basement. Yeah, and you still kept using. Yeah,
this is what demonstrates how powerful addiction is. It's not like I wasn't aware of what was going on in my life at the time and what I had to lose. But when I put myself into the frame of mind that I was at the time, I mean, there's no excuses, But
you thought you could control it instead of it controlling you.
Yeah, I felt at that point I had one last go with the patches and felt I could titrate my doses, meaning just be very cautious and careful. And it's very difficult when somebody's been clean now for 5 weeks. I overdid it, not realizing it, thinking I had it under control, but I didn't. So I came very close to death. My wife saved my life. I was just one breath away from passing away, and she found me at that moment. And again, so I wasn't even done at that point. I continued to use until I was done, psychologically, really, just like, okay, I'm done with the patches. So I did quit on my own at that point.
So you quit before the police showed up at your door,
right?
With a battering ram,
yep,
and put you and your wife in cuffs.
Yep, okay. Yeah. So I had quit on my own when I was ready to quit. I mean, that's the scary part is each person with addiction is on their own lone journey, and it's so hard for caring parents and family to see that happen and be powerless. And until it's like I said, it's a lone journey. I decided when I was done. I still had a clouded mind. I was still sick as a dog. That's part of the reason why I slipped. But each relapse process, I have to say, was a learning process. It took me a few times. That's the point I want to make, is that each time I learned something, and I'm back on the same dead-end road that's going to take me nowhere and going to take me into trouble and further down this disgusting life. And that is why I want to reach out to other people, and hope that they learn that lesson too. It's just a one-way road.
Why are you sharing? What do you hope to gain from sharing your story?
It's in my nature, just to first of all to want to help people. I mean, it really. I went to jail and I sat there and I had a lot of time to think. And losing freedom, you think is bad enough, but also feeling marginalized from society really bothered me. Like I was a contributor just weeks prior, and now I felt like a piece of crap. I was nothing and worthless, and all these things I was telling myself. But the day I got out of jail, so I was in there for 3 weeks, met a lot of nice people, to be honest. I was in the general population. There's a lot of younger guys made bad decisions just like I did. Good people who made bad decisions. And that was very motivating. When the day or two after I was released from custody, I started work on my life and living presentation, which is to educate you, anyone who wants to listen, about the experiences. And at that point, it was like, what is a cell range? What does an orange jumpsuit look like? What is a correctional facility? But it grew from there. And so it's in my nature as a person, but also as a physician, of just wanting to share the experiences. I've lost a tremendous amount of things, but when you lose a lot of things, you also gain clarity. Strangers become friends, friends become strangers. And I realized that's just one example, but I want to give back.
You had the picture-perfect life, the house, the boat, the wife, the kids. That's all gone now. Where are you at now?
You think it's picture perfect, right? And then the addiction doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot of personal issues going on that I didn't mention. I
understand. Only people inside a house know what goes on inside a house.
Right. So, but that's the question. Like, how does someone go from A to B? And it's poor, what I would call, in the medical terms, maladaptive coping with stress. So I was medicating myself, basically, to deal with my stress. That's not an effective way. It's a double-edged sword. And so that's what led me to a jail cell, ultimately, so it got pretty ugly. I'm trying to remember the beginning of your question there again. Sorry.
What did you lose?
So, the most important thing to me is that my children are in New Brunswick with their mother. The marriage is now over. We're amicable, but they had to be with their mother. Katie needed to be with her mother, who was her surety, and they lived in New Brunswick. So the kids had to go to New Brunswick. There's no choice. It's not a good environment here anymore. So forget the house and the monetary things, the boat, whatever, the cars. My kids having to go to another province, that still really affects me, hurts. The marriage broke up. My career is, in shatters, but I'm trying to rebuild myself.
Are you facing jail time?
Yeah, illegal things as well. That's a big one. Yeah, just with the career, my medical license has not been revoked. The College of Physicians is waiting for the outcome of my legal proceedings. And freedom. I've lost my freedom. I've been on basically house arrest since February 5th, 2015, so over 2.5 years almost. And what I want to say, though, again, is I don't like playing the victim. For everything I've lost, there's something to look at optimistically and say, well, what have I gained? I don't want to be a victim. Just for example, I live with my dad now. We've never been so close in my life, and I've gotten to know him in ways that I never would have known before. So there are some positives here. My children are happy. They have a roof over their heads. They have food in their mouths. Okay, that's fine. My ex-wife is able to work now. So, it really becomes clear. This is the weird thing. Is like when you lose everything that you think is important, clarity comes and you realize what is important to you.
Well, hopefully by sharing your story, maybe some people will not have to go down that road and maybe get help sooner.
Yeah, it took me to lose a lot to, I have to learn things the hard way, it seems. That's just me. And
you're not alone in that, and it's as I said at the start, this is an issue that we're dealing with.
Right, and so by me reaching out and sharing my story, I'm hoping others can learn from it and try to avoid making the same mistakes, to know that they're not alone. There's other people who've been through it and have to do the fight. But on the other side, when you get through it, life becomes so much better.
All right. Dr. Gebien, thanks so much for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You can read Dr. Darryl Gebien's story in Maclean's. Do check it out because there's a lot more that we didn't get to. But thanks for his time today.